Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all safe and well. My name is Lewis. This is my channel Sakuzan, and for the majority of the time I talk about jazz vinyl. So welcome to the channel if this is your first time, and welcome back if you've been here on more than one occasion. I'm always grateful for your company, so thank you very much. So on today's episode, I'm not doing anything unique. I'm just putting something out there that you might find interesting. It's going to be along the lines of, it's taking inspiration from my jazz vinyl collection, which you can see behind me. And I'll explain as we're going on what's going on. But first of all, let's start off with a bit of housekeeping. I like to do this mainly as a means to remind myself to thank you, the wonderful viewers, and some of you who I will name who have helped me along my journey in terms of this channel. So yeah, this is what I use this particular section of the video for. So first of all today, I'd like to thank all those who have subscribed to the channel since the last video, which done really well. So thank you very much for those who took the time to watch the video, like, and on the basis of it, subscribe to the channel. Also, I wanted to thank sincerely James Buttery for his response video, which was a response to my last video. Yeah, he done his own interpretation of it. It was a very enjoyable video by James, and he was very kind to shout out to his audience that I exist. I was the inspiration for his last video, and I just wanted to say, James, thank you very much, mate. That was really nice of you to do that. You didn't have to, but I just wanted to say thank you very much. My channel and myself truly do appreciate you doing that for me. Well, in fact, doing it for yourself, but yeah, I happen to benefit from it as well. So thank you once again, James. Yes. Oh, I was going to tell you something. Yes, I do like to keep to a schedule. I try to do that wherever I can. Sometimes, with the best will in the world, things just are outside of my control, or things go in a way that I didn't expect it to go. So for example, when I was planning this particular episode, I was thinking about 3 different jazz topics, perhaps in jazz, which I might have made a video on. So I was taking vinyl off my shelf, listening to it. With a lot of them, it's the first time I've heard them in years, maybe the first time in a year, 6 months, 3 months. So it was reminding myself of what's in my collection, because it really is quite easy to forget what you have. I mean, that's why these videos for me are really beneficial, because it reminds me what I do possess, what I've forgotten about, or there's always something new to listen to, so you kind of get sidetracked. So one of my strong ideas for today's video, one was to collate from my collection my spiritual jazz albums, and try and do like a top 10, or top 5, top 10, or whatever it was going to be. That was my intention. And as I was running through what I assumed to be my spiritual jazz albums, I got lost in, it was like Alice in Wonderland. I got lost in definitions. What does this actually mean? Is this represented in the albums that I thought were spiritual jazz, in quotation marks, and what they actually are? So I think I kind of gave up on it, because I found albums which as a whole were not spiritual jazz albums. I wouldn't classify them as such, but they had one particular track on there which definitely would be. Alternatively, I found albums which no individual track would be considered spiritual jazz in my own mind's eye, but the entirety is taken as a whole, as a whole body of work. The album could be described as such because of the journey it takes you on. So just by me trying to explain it out aloud, you can see that I began to unravel. So I kind of just abandoned that. So I've come up with something else. Hopefully, those who are watching will find it interesting, may even find it useful and entertaining. You never know with me. You can go so many different directions. So, oh, just one other thing. I was looking at the analytics for my channel, and I like to look at every now and again just to see what's going on. Just random facts which kind of get spewed out. My channel is of it's nowhere near the size where you really can get an accurate picture of what's going on. I just don't have the subscriber numbers or the viewer numbers in order to do that. But what information is coming out is rather interesting, but I'm not willing to say this is definitive by any stretch of the imagination. So a number of views from places such as Indonesia. Thank you, my Indonesian brothers and sisters. My Slovenian brothers and sisters, thank you very much. And from the Scandinavian region, we have some viewership from Sweden and Norway. Thank you so much for, I'm just moved that somebody from so far away can find this channel, and even if it's for 5 seconds, find at least 5 seconds of comfort or entertainment. So yeah, I get choked up even thinking about it. So yeah, a couple of other, just one more, well, I call it interesting stats. You probably won't, but I'm just going to go for it anyway. So of my viewership in terms of the differences, what percentages are in what age ranges. From 25 to 34-year-olds, 16%. From 45 to 54 is 47.9%. And from 55 to 64, 36.1%. Now, you might have noticed there that those who are between the ages of 35 and 44 did not appear. You'd be absolutely right, because they care not for me. They care not a jot for what I'm doing. So if you are 35 to 44, please reconsider. If you have stopped by the channel before, how about throwing me a like or a subscribe in your age group, just to get me numbers up, if nothing else. You know what I mean? Represent, you're representing your particular age range as well, so why not do that and do me a favor at the same time? So there you go. That's enough about the housekeeping. So moving on to today's subject, which is how to get into jazz, 10 records for people who don't listen to jazz. There you go. I'm going to repeat you once more time. How to get into jazz, 10 records for people who don't listen to jazz. Okay, nothing original there, but what's going to be different from mine, from everybody else's videos who may have done this in the past, is, of course, I'm going to put my spin on it, and hopefully you'll find my choices interesting, thought-provoking. Please, in the comment section, feel free to state whether you agree or disagree with the choices that I've made. I'm not saying that this is like my once in a lifetime attempt at this. I'm sure into the future I'm going to try this again, and I'm sure by that time I'll have other records, and yeah, there's gonna, you know, some things will remain, some things will be swapped out. You just don't know. Anyway, it's just to stimulate conversation more than anything. So the idea behind this particular video is, if I was to come across somebody who was into music, who had CDs and vinyl, had done all the basics, their taste just so happened to have been in other genres, and you know, they'd seen jazz YouTubers videos and said, oh, this is a genre I've always, you know, I've heard about, wanted to kind of discover it from us. Well, not to discover it, but I wanted to start the journey on this, see if I like it, where would I start, type of thing. So it's perfectly innocent. We've all been there with our collections. At some point we had very little vinyl, now we've got, you know, considerable amounts of it. But it didn't just happen overnight. That is, unless you literally went out and bought somebody else's entire collection, then you can do that. But normally it's a journey which takes a period of time to, you know, and in that period of time your tastes change, you know, what influences you, what you think you like, what, you know, what you thought you liked at the time, and whether that's aged well, and all those kind of considerations come in. So, but the more important part is, you know, where do I start, type of thing. So this is mine and my channel's take on the actual subject area, and as I said, as you would have come to expect with me, I'm not, it'd be boring if everybody who was doing this repeated the same albums. So of course I'm not going to do it. I'm going to give my 2 cents worth on the subject. So the criteria for the album, the jazz albums that I've chosen to represent the 10 albums I would recommend to somebody just starting off in jazz is, by no means am I saying that these are the greatest 10 jazz records in existence or even in my collection. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, for the person who's starting off in jazz, this is a really good launch pad for you to kind of mull over and decide for yourself whether this is a genre that you wish to pursue in your own collection. I'm just putting this forward as just a good launch pad. So yeah, take it in that particular context. So the criteria I'm going to be using is the quality and composition. Sorry, quality of composition. Sorry, let me start for the third time. Okay. Criteria is the artistic vision, and in brackets, quality of composition and musicianship. So with each of the albums, I've chosen it because I've got an overarching theme. That's certainly a key element in it, but it may or may not be you know, at its forefront. The quality of the composition, so the consistency of the tunes which are on there, you know, how the level of sophistication, the experience, and I would add into that the musicianship. So how it's being played is really important in the 10 choices that I've made. Another part of the criteria would be how many good tunes are featured. So in my collection, I've got many albums that I've bought for one track. I love that track. I can't imagine my collection without that particular album with that one track on it. But I'm not saying that that's a good place for those who are starting off in jazz to literally, as a launch pad, that's awful. You want albums which are pretty much consistent throughout, even if it's not, you know, S tier, maybe, you know, it's not even A tier, it may be B tier, but the whole experience is a good one, or overall it's a good one. So that's why I've chosen that tune. And thirdly, to do with price. So there are albums in my collection where they tick the first two boxes, but the price of the album is enough to make the the new person to the the collecting area, it might make them wince. So I didn't want to choose those ones. So it's going to be competitively priced. It will represent bang for bucks. So there you go. So 15 minutes in, that's the preamble. That's the title of the actual episode today, and the reasoning and thinking behind why I've chosen to do this particular video. There you go. Right. As you can see, I'm looking down all the time because I need a cheat sheet with this. I literally listened to so many albums over the last month that a lot of my thoughts got jumbled up because I was misremembering statements with particular albums. So I've had to write some of these down. Hopefully it still makes sense to me. But we'll see. Anyway, these are in no particular order. They're just 10 albums that I would put forward to anyone who's starting their journey in jazz. Yeah, there you go. Right, so the first album today was recorded in 1961. I think it's an absolute delight, and it probably doesn't get the respect that it deserves. There we go. It's Cal Massey and Blues to Coltrane. This particular one's on the Candid record label, and as I said, it's from 1961. Yeah, I really like that. I like the cover. Apparently, this is his one and only album, which is a real shame. On the reverse side, it goes through the slightly tragic tale of Cal Massey. Slightly tragic in the sense of he probably didn't fulfill his musical career, but in terms of the background, the back end stuff in the music industry such as writing music, he really seems to have carved out a niche for himself. So it is overall a good heartwarming story, but as a musician, certainly his as far as I can tell, he had a stuttering career. It happens. Not everyone can get to the top, it's just the way it happens. So yeah, as I said, on the Candid record label, this one. So my thoughts on Cal Massey. I start off with an album worthy of a much higher level of respect than it actually receives. So for those who have got extensive jazz collections, they do have this album. They just don't talk about it. It can easily get lost, not because it isn't an outstanding piece of work, because it is, but it can get lost if you have a really big collection. So to really get the best out of it, this is a real opportunity when you're just entering jazz to give something to listen to, which is a beautiful piece of work. This is classic blues stroke soul jazz. Yeah, I don't play it enough, to be quite honest. It's got an older sound, hence the 1961. So it has a distinct sound. It's more on the bop side of, it's bluesy, yet there is a bit of bop in there as well. The compositions are engaging and played with poise. Yeah, I'm not going to take, I'm not going to withdraw any of those statements. Yes, so it is a style of jazz that usually I wouldn't gravitate towards. I find that era of jazz too close to Charlie Parker. I'm not really a fan of that sound as such, but that's just me. If you're into it and it works for you, power to you. For me, no, I'm not really that interested in it. But this made me rethink my own prejudices about that era of jazz. I've come to adore this album, and I'm really glad to have it in my collection. And I know somebody who's new into jazz will probably get a lot out of it. So yeah, we continued listening. Yeah, it's yeah, you get a lot out. So it's spiritual, it's meditative, and oh yeah, one of the lovely qualities about it is the subdued pace, and it can be played, the composition could have been played faster, but there is a recognition by way of the music conductor to know, rein yourselves in, let's savor this, let's not try and rush through it, let's really take our time with it and make it sound as, each track sound as good as it could be. So yeah, really good. And yeah, I'll leave a link down below to what I believe is the best track on there, or a track that really made me kind of like this, for me anyway, an example of how good the compositions and the musicianship is. I'll find an example of it. So look down below in the description. I'll leave some audio links there to each, well, to at least one track of each album. So keep an eye on that. So yeah, I don't want this to be a super long video, so I'm going to hurtle through some of these. The next album today is, let's just have a look. That was released in 1980. I'm of an age to kind of think, oh, 1980 wasn't that long ago, but yeah, it actually was. This came out on the Strata East record label. One of my favorite pianists, full stop, John Hicks. There you go. And this is an album entitled Hell's Bells. It's a 4-track album. Yeah, so I'll show you the reverse there. So yeah, this is one of those albums that as soon as I haven't been aware of John Hicks for that long, to be quite honest with you. So I'm not talking like I am some expert. I came to him quite late in the game, and what a magnificent jazz pianist. He does get a lot of respect, there's no doubt about it, but does he get enough? Oh, I'm not sure. But this album is just for me, as a slice of piano jazz, I just find it absolutely fascinating. I think the bang for bucks is unbelievable, the ratio. I've put fantastic muscular piano jazz. Yeah, there are a certain class of people who can make difficult things look easy. To your ear, the way he's playing the piano, it makes it sound like you, within half an hour of touching the keyboard for the first time, you could play like him. No, you can't. No, you absolutely can't. But there's just people who just do that, make things look easy when they're quite the contrary. They're extremely difficult things to pull off. But there you go. I found the album astonishing, and I was flabbergasted. That's how intense some of my sensations were from listening to Hell's Bells. An absolutely chef's kiss of I've got a soft spot for piano jazz anyway, so it's really in my wheelhouse of the jazz sound that I want to hear, and it delivers. It's just a really good piece of jazz. If you don't own it already, and you do have quite a collection of jazz, you really should have it in there, I think anyway. It's really that good. So as I said, 1980, John Hicks, Hell's Bells. Yeah, I'm going to recommend that really strongly. If not all 4 tracks on there are of a high standard, 3 of the 4 are going to, yeah, really float your boat for those who are new to jazz, as well as already dipped a few toes into the world of jazz. So that's the second one. The third one today, this was re-released on the Mad About Records label. The original label, I think, was called RA. Let's just have a look. Sorry to keep looking down, by the way. I know it's slightly irritating. Where's me notes on it? Oh, there you go. It's a 1980 album. Sorry about that for looking down for so long. And it is Malachi Thompson. There you go. I do love the flares. Yeah, I'm loving those flares. Yeah, I love the album cover, full stop. There's a lot going on there. The reverse, I've just got the vinyl there, so let's just see if I can extract that so you can perhaps see what's at the back. There you go. Right, with this album, re-released not that long ago. I had never heard of the gentleman before, so with encountering this particular album, I was simply blown away. So I believe it's 6 tracks on the album. The A side, it's not like rubbish or anything, but I was kind of meh about it. It's like, again, it depends on how many other jazz albums you've got in your collection. I wasn't particularly enamored with side A of the album. The album's entitled The Seventh Son, I believe. Yeah, it is The Seventh Son. Yeah, there you go. But side B is an absolute hoot. It's unbelievably good. It just takes things to a totally different level. It was an absolute pleasure to experience this album. It was awesome. It was trumpet led jazz soul, also jazz. Just really good compositions, punchy musicianship. Yeah, just absolute delight to listen to. Now, when I was listening to it, I had written down the term honeyed jazz, and that was just simply for the reason that I don't care. Well, I'm not saying I don't care. I'm not aware that anybody's ever used that term before. I might be the first one. I'm probably not, but there was something sweet and addictive about listening to side B of The Seventh Son. It was a real delight to listen to. So I'm going to leave links down below so you can hear for yourself, see if it's going to fit in your collection. But definitely for somebody who was starting their collection, I would go, yeah, if you're going to do it in vinyl, get some of that. So that's the third album. The fourth album today is a 1981 release. Yeah, this was an absolute delight as well. Story behind it, Horace Tapscott. I'd got his album The Call. I was going to feature it in this video, but for whatever reason it just failed to make the grade, and that's not because of it is an outstanding album, but maybe I covered what that album does on some of the other ones. So, but the reason for going on that preamble is Horace Tapscott, the Pan-African Orchestra, something like that. Set of local musicians, one of which was a young lady called Adele Sebastian, and here is her solo album, her one and only solo album. As I said, from 1981. This is absolutely lovely, and this is, I think, called the Desert Fairy Princess. There you go. Again, let's just show you the reverse side. Oops. There you go. So yes, the young lady comes from a really good background of honest to goodness craft in her music. And this album is absolutely lovely. It is a concept album in the sense of it's got Middle Eastern overtones to it, all of which is lovely. It's within my wheelhouse. But yet, let's just go back to my notes anyway. A thing of beauty, stunning vistas, light and breezy. but it would be a mistake it would be a mistake to underestimate this light and breeziness for lack of sophistication. This is a very complex set of material, played with absolute, just from my sense as an outsider, it just feels like the musician were really having a good time, and it somehow resonates on the actual vinyl itself or in the recording, to my humble opinion anyway. I love this album. I got my hands on it a number of years ago, never looked back, can't imagine my jazz collection without this being in it. So I'm going to leave a link down below so you can hear one of the tracks for yourself. I just would recommend it to, if you don't have it already in your collection, perhaps you should really consider having it. And certainly for those who are starting in jazz, it's a really good launch pad. There's albums of a very similar mark, which sometimes it gets a bit too much navel gazing, but not on this one. This is really well balanced. Yeah, well, that's all I can say really. An absolutely terrific album to start your jazz journey. You're just being spoiled here, to be quite honest with you. Right, that should be the fourth one. Yes, we're going to try and make this a shorter video than usual. So let's get on to the fifth one. And this is a 1972 release. Let's just see if I can figure out who, on Mainstream Records. And it is Roy Haynes and the album entitled Senya. There you go. Yeah, I really like that. Let me show you that. Yeah, that's the guy who's feeling it. So yeah, again, a lovely piece of soul jazz here. Love it. Yeah, got a lot of time for it. I've had it on my shelves for ages, and yeah, I knew it was there. I just didn't, I didn't too frequently get an opportunity to play it, which was a real shame because it is an absolutely lovely album. Super soul jazz. It's undeniably cool, it's intriguing, and it's rewarding. So, but I can see that I underlined this statement, cool, twice and rewarding once. Yeah, I feel this album. It's yeah, it's just fantastic. You're going to be able to hear it so if you've never heard it before, then I totally understand that. So where do I know Roy Haynes? I've got another album where he's featured. I'm just trying to remember. It could be with the Booker Elvin. Is it Booker Elvin? And the album's entitled Cracking, I think it is. That's the other album I got. That's probably, yeah, that's where I think it originates from, my knowledge of the actual artist. That was a superb album. This is a really good album. I don't know which one's better at the two that I own. I just think they're different. They're probably operating at the same level, same tier level, but they've just got a different footprint type thing. So yeah, really good place to start with soul jazz. There's a lot of, it's muscular, yet there's some romanticism in it. It's not too cynical. Yeah, and there's a couple of drum solos which are really cool to listen to. There's one which just gets a bit overpowering. I think it's the last track on the album where he goes a bit too far with the old drum solo. But other than that, yeah, he's drumming. Well, the general musicianship is absolutely fantastic. So if you've never heard of Roy Haynes, please give the video down below. Well, look in the description down below. I should be able to leave a link to one of the tracks. Have a good listen to it. Even try out the whole album and see if it works for you. But definitely for the beginner, I would give this one a go. Right, let's move on. How many we got left? I think, ooh, that was number 5. Okay, we're in the back stretch now. Right, The next album is from, oh, it's one of two from 1975, I believe, which are part of this top 10. Now, the album that I'm going to show you is one of my all-time favorite albums in my collection. Am I saying it's the best jazz album ever? No, but for me, on a subjective level, I really do appreciate what's going on this album. It's an album called Soul Translation, and it's by Donald Alexander Strachan and the Freedom Ensemble. There you go. Let me show you the reverse. So no doubts, this came out, well, 75, but it's of a time where lots of artists were getting funded to produce independent albums, and they were doing so, and thank goodness that that was an artistic program which was allowed to happen, because the body of work which came out of that era is unbelievable. I mean, a lot of it I don't like, but what I do like, I really, really, really like. And this is just one of those albums. It's an absolute, it's just a riot, this album. Yeah, so you can fall into a trap with this album, because it's doing a couple of things that other more well-established albums were doing, but they're not. I'm not saying they're necessarily the same standard. They're not, but I'm going to respect the attempt being done here on a much lesser a budget, basically. So so what you see John Coltrane doing on A Love Supreme, where it's 4 individual tracks, yet they're different, yet it's a course of a journey. It's like a, you know, a river going through a canyon type thing. So it meanders and it somehow circles back to what the, you know, what's at the start of the river, you know, as it flows down and goes round and all that kind of, it eventually comes back on itself. That's what A Love Supreme pretty much does. But there's different stages within that journey. So what I'm saying is this album's trying to do the same thing in its own way. That's not to say it's hitting the same high points as A Love Supreme. I wouldn't, you know, insult your intelligence by trying to claim that. But what I'm saying is it's not off the same level, but it's trying to do the same thing. It's trying to take you on a journey, a meandering journey of tracks which are, they don't necessarily have, it's hard to notice the through line as you're listening to them, but when you have finished listening to the whole album, and again I would say this is an album that you take as a whole, that's where the enjoyment is. You're not really trying to pull out individual tracks from this particular album. You are taking it as it's in its entirety. So yeah, that's why I got to give this album a lot of credit. It is again another thing of beauty. I've got a lot of time for it. Still one of my favorite albums in my collection. So once again, that is the Donald Alexander Strachan and the Freedom Ensemble and its Soul Translation. Yeah, really good jazz album. As I say, I would say it's more on the kind of free jazz elements in there. There is soul jazz, but probably free jazz, if I got my definitions correct. Okay, I can't bother to pursue that. So that was, I think, the 6th. Yeah, that should be the 6th album. We're gonna hurtle on to the 7th. Okay. So this is a 1962 release. Let's see if I can see. I've got, my version is on the Sewin Records label. And the album's entitled Year of the Iron Sheep. Quite, I like that album title. And it's by a gentleman called Ken McIntyre. There you go. Yeah, I like the cover. Let me show you the reverse. bit of blurb about him. Yeah, I got a lot of time for this album. I bought it within the last year, I think, something like that. Yeah, it's definitely worth the money. It's an extremely well constructed album. The standard is unbelievable on this thing. It it is really remarkable, and it's again, it's one of those things where perhaps the artist, in my humble opinion, probably doesn't get the respect that they deserve, which is a real shame. But I've got a copy of it, and yeah, if you don't have a copy of this or you've never heard it, I'm going to leave a link down below so you can hear at least one track. You'll be able to pursue it for yourself. This is a really good jazz album, and it's not over the top. So again, I would say it falls into that category of quality, but the beginner stroke intermediate collector of jazz vinyl, definitely, if they don't have it already, there's going to be room in their life for this particular album. Yeah. So let me read some of my bullet points that I wrote about it. Ridiculously accomplished and riveting experience. It's definitely that. The richness of composition and musicianship is barely believable. Again, it's one of those albums which I'm going to give you the bangs for buck in terms of how many really strong compositions and tracks of really high standard musicianship are actually on this album. It's almost unfair. It's not unfair to us because we're the recipients, but it's to our benefit that they have done it in the way that they've done it, because that could have been 3 albums worth of material there, which they could have just like eked it out, 2-3 tracks per album and fill the rest with nonsense. But no, they put it all on one album. So yeah, fantastic. Yeah, it's just a really good album. I mean, every album I've shown you, I do believe in it, and I'm heartily recommending them to you because I know you won't go wrong with them. So yeah, of course I'm going to be like amped up and just, but again, you're in the comment section, you're going to say whether or not you believe what I'm saying has even the hint of truth. So we must push on. Last 3 albums. The next one is a 1967 release. I've got mine on the Douglas record label. It's by a gentleman called Pete LaRocca, and the album's entitled Turkish Women at the Bath. Let's just show you that. So I think many of you would, if you're a beginner, it's certainly a really good launch pad. If you're intermediate, or you got some jazz in your collection, your vinyl collection, but you don't have this already, you should certainly give it a listen to. If not, purchase it almost immediately. This is high-end jazz, I'm not going to lie to you. In my notes, astonishing piece of work. I think this album is easily a match for Pete LaRocca's Blue Note album Basra. I think there's hardly anything in it between them. The standard is comparable. It's just that the Basra ones on Blue Note, so hence more people will tend to know about it and own it. I'm going to advocate this one. The level of sophistication on display and the insights is staggering. Yep. Okay. I'm not going to say anything back there. And last thing I'd said about it was panoramic. So yeah, this is one of those Vista type of albums where, again, when you listen to the entirety of it, you'll get a different impression than just listen to individual tracks. So I really would strongly suggest trying to listen to the whole thing and immersing yourself in the world that Pete LaRocca has constructed. It is a wonderful thing. So I'm going to leave links down below so at least you could hear one track and pursue the rest of the album from there, if it's to your taste. Right, that was the 7th one. The 8th, no, in fact that was the 8th. This is the 9th coming up. So yeah, those who are who were here from the very early days of the channel may recognize the album I'm going to show you next. It's one of my favorites, and I'm so glad I got this in my collection. I just can't get enough of it. It was supposed to be me in this album. This is a 1978 release. I've got mine on the, well, it's Strata East, but this is more, I think it's, yeah, Superfly Strata East collaboration type thing, and it's by John Gordon, and it's the Erotica Suite. There you go. I'll show you the reverse. There you go. Yeah, an absolutely wonderful album. Again, as I say, there is a running theme. I would say you should listen to the album in its entirety rather than just try to cherry pick tracks. You need to listen to the whole thing to really get the true benefits of how good this album is. It's astonishing for me. As I said, I'm really glad to have had it, well, have it in my collection. It's completely underrated. If it was like a Miles Davis production, people will be whittering on about it. You wouldn't be able to get them, you wouldn't be able to shut them up. They just keep talking about it. This is easily of that standard. It's just a dude who's not called Miles Davis or that level of name. Well, he just doesn't have the body of work what Miles does, but that, yeah, as a one-off enterprise, this is very good. I have put down, it's not a perfect high energy in this particular album, which oh, I think there was a huge jump cut there. So yeah, this particular video will be longer than I intended. There's going to be a really horrible editing chunk kind of thing going on. It won't be seamless, so look out for that. That should amuse you. So back to John Gordon, Erotica Suite. Yeah, really classy album. Again, for those who have been collecting jazz but don't have it already, please give it a listen to. You're probably going to get something, you're going to get a lot of enjoyment out of it because it really is that good. For those who are new to jazz, this is an excellent place for you to start. It's, again, non-pretentious. It just is what it is, but it's very good. The high energy, it's just quintessentially what good jazz is. And I've put my last comment on it, was I adore this album, and I really do. So the last album today it's yeah, it's a 1975 release once again. Yeah, it's the second album of that vintage, which I really do like. I've got it on the Mad About Records label. I believe it originally came out on the Triumph record label. Yes, let's just show you this last album. Sorry for fidgeting. And it's Jothan Callins. And the album is entitled The Winds of Change. There you go. I'll show you the reverse side as well. Yeah, it was a booklet which came with it. There you go. I don't think I've ever read that part. There you go. So yeah, I've bought this album in the last year, and haven't looked back since. I've listened to this album quite a bit, and every time I do listen to it, I discover something new and something really interesting, which enlivens my spirit. It's such a good album. It reminds you of why you chose this genre to be interested in, because these are the sort of outcomes which can happen. So yeah, this album's a fantastic journey, and again, like many of the albums I've I've shown you already today, they are based on the entirety of the piece rather than trying to, rather than try to pick out individual tracks. It is to do with the totality of the album itself, which is yeah, it's just French Kiss. I lose my ability to speak when I think about this album because it's that good. It really is. Yeah, just get your hands on it. It's something else. It's something special, and not enough people are talking about it. Even if they do own it, they're not talking about it. Not in the same way that other artists are spoken of. So what I wrote was an absolutely wonderful journey in jazz, phenomenal musicianship, again a thing of beauty, pathos. I've never used that with anything I describe normally by way of albums. I think that was just to do with the level of sophistication on show by way of composition, what they're trying to do. So it's not all smiles and wonderful vistas. There's some underlying, maybe foreboding. So it's a rich canvas which we're encountering on this particular album. I got the tingles with this one. That was my last statement. Yeah, I felt something with this album. It was an absolutely astonishing journey. And I just think the last year of purchasing jazz vinyl has been really rewarding, where I've encountered so many albums which I had no idea that they existed until, you know, I happened to come across them. So yeah, it's just been a wonderful journey, I must admit. So that was the last album. That was the 10th one. Again, that was Jothan Callin's. It's a 1975 album, and it's the Winds of Change. Yeah, there you go. So sorry for all the fidgeting. Some of, you know, I do apologize. Yeah, these kind of albums, to keep all my thoughts in one place, it's really hard for me, in terms of, as I said, I listened to that many albums over the last month that things got jumbled up, so I had to kind of have a cheat sheet in order to cope with it all. Thank you very much for joining me for this particular episode. It went on way longer than what I thought it would do. Yes, there's going to be editing in there where I've got to splice 2 bits of video together, and it's going to be horrible, but yeah, you'll just laugh your way through it. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope you found it enjoyable, informative. Hopefully my voice wasn't too monotoned, although I think I'm getting a cold. I feel quite nasally, so you might be able to hear it on the audio. And I will tell you in subsequent weeks if it did turn into a full-blown cold or not. Yes, thank you for joining me. If you like the episode, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing. It'd be most appreciated. Do leave your comments down below, whether you agree, disagree, if you have any alternatives, an alternate top 10 that you would perhaps, as a listing to give to somebody else who's just into jazz. What 10 jazz albums would you recommend to them? As you can see, I went with something different from, you know, albums that you see on most people, well, a lot of content creators channels. I didn't want to repeat what they've done. So yeah, please let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear from them. Yeah, we'll agree, disagree, we'll have a conversation anyway. It's an absolute pleasure. Please look after yourselves, stay safe, and I will see you at some point for another video once I've clarified in my mind what the subject area is going to be about. So until then, please look after yourselves, stay safe, bye bye.